I can announce that America will lead a broad coalition to roll back this terrorist threat.
All right, well, who is in that coalition? Well, 13 years ago, there was no question it was backing us. And then Australian Prime Minister John Howard was chief among them. The Prime Minister joins you right now. Prime Minister, thank you for joining us. What is Australia involved, to your knowledge, in this latest coalition?
Well, that's something for the government of Australia now to announce. Our foreign minister has indicated that if a request is received, it will be considered, and bearing in mind that Australia has already participated in the humanitarian relief, there's a clear indication that Australia shares the concern of the United States and many other countries about what is now happening with IS, the way in which its murderous rampage has claimed the lives of thousands of people, the brutality demonstrated towards those two American journalists, the gruesome and public manner of their execution has sickened millions of Australians. There's no doubt it has sickened millions of people all around the world. But it's for the Australian government of today to publicly announce what our country will do.
You know, there are a lot of folks who wonder, they welcome this president's interest in and concern for wiping out ISIS, but they also wonder how deeply committed he is to it, especially if he had such a coalition. He would certainly have been naming its partners last night, or the degree of their support, which leads some to think, myself included, and I could be wrong, Prime Minister, that there isn't much support there, or that his own appetite is fairly limited. That there is a difference between his approach to this and maybe your approach or George Bush's approach. That may be a good or a bad thing, but maybe President Bush overdid it. This president is doing it enough. What do you think?
Well, I can't read President Obama's mind. I welcome what he said last night, and I welcome the commitment to fight this terrible evil. As to who might be involved, we'll just have to wait and see. I don't know that we should automatically read too much into the fact that partners weren't named. Perhaps every president does these things a little differently. The significant thing is that there is a recognition of the threat that this outfit represents. There's a concern that citizens of other countries have been attracted to.
Well, I'm sorry, John, but more of a concern now than it was with Al-Qaeda, given ISIS's resources, money, social networking savvy. What do you think?
Oh, certainly ISIS is a bigger threat because it does have, as you rightly say, remarkable resources. I think one of the problems in Iraq was that the government, which has now been replaced, was not inclusive enough. I think it was absolutely in every way regrettable that the progress that was made with the surge initiated by the former President Bush and led by General David Petraeus, that surge in 2007, 2008 was extremely successful, but the gains from that surge were not consolidated by the internal politics of Iraq. The long-term solution to the challenge in Iraq and in Syria and in other countries where ISIS represents a dire threat is, of course, a domestic political one, and it must include an approach to government that recognises the interests and the rights of all sections of the communities of these countries, and that means in Iraq, obviously, the Sunnis as well as the Shia, and also the Kurds, and it was the failure of the former government in Iraq, particularly over the last 2 or 3 years, to do that, which has contributed in part, I only say in part, to the terrible threat that we now have.
John Howard, thank you, Prime Minister.